Well, welcome everybody. Hopefully the pizza's good. Hopefully the speaker's good today. It's always a good thing if we can learn something new. So thanks for time. I do spend a lot of time every single week learning new things. I think my parents didn't like it when I was a kid because I would always ask why about everything. Why does that do? Why does that happen? What's the light going on? I think my parents love it now though because I've asked why so many times about retirement that they have a pretty nice retirement. They live in Orem, not too far away, and they're enjoying it. So they get almost $4,000 a month in Social Security, if you ever want the breakdown on that. One of the things I figured out with my parents is that if you can just get to the point where you have your house paid off or close, if you can get pretty close or have a pretty small house payment or have the thing gone or do a reverse mortgage if that's something you want to do, and you can just get at least $3, $4, $5 grand a month coming in like clockwork, you're doing good. Who agrees with me on that? If you can just have at least a decent little chunk coming in. Now, of course, you work at BYU and you have an advantage over a lot of places. There's not as many people that have pensions. Who realizes that? How many people wish that every kid that they, am I in the window here, David, or I need to be over here a little bit? Okay, sorry. Who wishes every child had a pension like you did? Because they're not around like they used to be. A school teacher lives just across the street from me, and he came over and he goes, "Hey, Craig, I need some help for a quick second." Sure, what's going on, Jordan? And he goes, "All right, I work for an Nebo school district, and I have a choice in URS." Who knows what URS is? Utah Retirement Systems. So if you have any neighbors or school teachers or anything, they have a pension through URS. This is the first time I've ever seen this. This is about 2.5 years ago. He literally pulls out these two pieces of paper and he says, "Craig, I can either go with the pension, tier 3, which is not as good as tier 1 or tier 2, or I can just simply have all my money go into a 401k. So now, even school teachers are getting to the point where there's not going to be a pension if they choose early in their career. I mean, he's only 20-something years old, and if he chooses 401k route only, he might have more in his 401k, but he might not because this is guaranteed. Who in here has the choice to opt out of your your DMBA Master Retirement Plan? Who has the choice to just opt out of it? Who in here? Nobody. So you have a forced retirement, which I love because then that pension is going to be there for you. If your kid works for a school district and decides to just do the 401k, there's no guarantee. There's no force because he or she could stop that if they wanted to. Anyway, interesting. So hopefully you're grateful where you work and grateful for this pension that you have. So, all right, let's dive into Social Security. We'll go into Social Security, then we're going to go into some taxes. You have the 1040 on your lap there. Hopefully, if you don't, let us get you one. We'll go through that for a few minutes, and then we're going to go through what's proposed in Congress right now. So we will go through and go through the Secure Act for a few minutes and make sure you understand that, maybe potential changes, and we'll go with that. So let's start in Social Security. I don't have a little clicker. I'm going to use this little arrow on this surface to flip through the slides. So I'll probably tend to be on this side for a few minutes. So agenda is really easy on Social Security. This is not a big deal. Don't be worried about figuring this stuff out. No, you don't have. What's the answer? There's a lot of answers in that one. No, you don't have to be a genius to know this Social Security stuff, but you do have to know the rules. Who in here has played rugby before? Any rugby players in the room? Okay, I haven't played. You played? Okay, awesome. Well, if all of us suited up and played our own BYU rugby team this Saturday morning, how good would we do? Okay, I like who said excellent? I like the positive vibes there, but I think hospital's probably more realistic. So what's funny is I teach these classes to different families and organizations and cities and stuff. I have people come up and go, "Craig, I'm totally ready for retirement." I go, "Awesome, that's so cool. How did this work out?" And he goes, this guy in particular, like, "I read an article on Yahoo Finance. It took me like 5 minutes, and I read 2 chapters my neighbor had in the book, and I am good." Right? Here's the thing. If he could retire 3, 4, 5, or 6 times, I really wouldn't be worried about it. The problem is you can't retire once and then go, honey, we should probably take our Social Security a little different, go back in time, do that, and get to the end of your second retirement and go, you know what, we should really do this with our IRAs, and we probably should pay attention more to those Roth IRAs rather than only IRAs or 401ks, and go back and do it again. So it's like rugby. If I give everyone a book about how to win at rugby, could we now win rugby, BYU, this Saturday morning? We'll read a book on how to win at rugby. Can we now win? Yeah. Oh, wow. All right. That's the first yes. So we can win at rugby just by reading a book about rugby. I love it. All right. So Social Security is the foundation. I didn't know much about Social Security up until about 10 years ago. My grandpa lived to be 104 years old. My dad took a life insurance test at 65. When he was done with the test, you know, the blood pressure test and the pee in the cup part and the blood, they gave him a packet, and it said, "Dear Theron Judd," remember he lives in Orem, "we will go ahead and give you a life insurance policy for the amount you requested, and we give you super preferred." What does it mean when you buying a life insurance policy gets super preferred? What does that mean? Cheaper. It's the lowest rate you can possibly get. Super preferred is the highest qualifying life insurance allocation, if that's the right word. He pays the least amount. So here my dad is at 65 taking a test about life insurance with an expert company on mortality. No one knows mortality or morbidity as much as a life insurance company. So this life insurance company sees my dad as, "You're going to live a long time, that's why your rates are so low." Well, we weren't surprised because my grandpa lived to be 104, his dad. Well, when you think about this, it's now a few years later, and they're in my office, around my conference table, and they're saying, "Okay, Craig, it's time to take our Social Security." I said, "Yep, I've already planned it. Let's go down to the Social Security office. We'll nail it out of the ballpark, and we'll figure this out. Give me about 3 to 5 minutes in the Social Security office, and we'll know." Remember, I didn't know anything at this point. You know when your gut just hits you right in the heart or maybe in the head? So I said, "Mom and Dad, we're not even going to go to the Social Security office. My gut says, I need to do a little more research, so give me 3 weeks." Well, that little 3 weeks hasn't ended. That was like 10 years ago plus, and that hasn't ended. And I'll tell you about the Bipartisan Act of 2015 today as well, and it changes Social Security forever in December of the end of this year, okay, 2019. So essentially, it was my parents' turn to retire and maximize their Social Security. And this is the foundation. I didn't know much about it. I kicked myself thinking, here I was, a financial person trying to help people with their IRAs and 401ks and the things like that, and I didn't even understand how this works. Now, it's way different. I approach Social Security first. Once we figure out Social Security, if you have your own Social Security, awesome. If you have a spouse, we figure that out. Then we go with, how do we make sure we maximize your pension, and how does that affect taxes on Social Security? How does all this stuff work together if you have IRAs versus Roth IRAs? So that's where the foundation of my Social Security started. So this is what we'll focus on, but you'll also get a glimpse of how it affects these other buckets. So if you have a Social Security, it may look something like this. These are just more random numbers. It might be X amount at 62, X amount at 66 or 67 for a bunch of you, and then of course the latest age is age 70. If you have a spouse, it may look something like this. I already know one of you in here is taking a spousal benefit, and so not taking your own benefit, so you're leaving yours alone and then taking the spousal benefit for a while. I call that free money, because for 3 to 4 years, you can actually take money off of your spouse's benefit, and that's part of what's changing here in December, so we'll go through that. But essentially, you have access to 2. I have met families that, they're trying to figure life out, they're trying to figure retirement out, and they don't even know how much access they have to Social Security. Even widows and widowers, people that are disabled, they don't realize they can take spousal benefits. So be aware that there's access to more than you realize as you figure this out. Okay, the number one thing I want to make sure you understand is this means something. And I know you know it means something. Because as you get your statement, you look up your Social Security and you go, hey, cool. Maybe you're talking to your spouse if you're married and you're like, hey, babe, look, I'm going to get $2,000 a month just for my Social Security at age 67. And it's almost $3,000 a month if I wait till age 70. And you have those kind of discussions. But there's no way that $2,000 is that much when you've got maybe, say, $200 or $100 or $300 or $500,000 in that. Correct? Is 500 grand a lot of money? Raise your hand if you think 500 grand is a lot of money. Is 2,000 a month a lot of money? Couple hands, okay. It adds up quick.
That's right. Depends on how many 2,000s you get.
Yeah, that's exactly right. It could be over $1 million. So $2,000, and if you live 10 years, that's already $304,000 that has been deposited in your bank account. Who wants 300 grand deposited in their bank account? Raise your hand. Even if it takes some time, you okay with that? As long as it's coming in? And look at that. 30 years, 1.1 million, and that's only at $2,000 a month. If you have $3,000 a month and you live 30 years, how old did my grandpa live to be?
104.
104. So he retired at 64 from the post office, postmaster in Arizona. So how many years was he in retirement? 40. That's a whole nother 10 years on top of this that he got a Social Security. So if there's two of you getting Social Security, how much has been deposited in your bank account in 30 years if both of you are alive 30 years from now? Who wants $2.3 million deposited in their bank accounts? Raise your hand. Okay, of course. So Social Security is huge, and it's funny how that changes perspective. I have people that go, Craig, I used to think 300 grand was a lot of money in my 401k, and the reason I used to think that is because my first house was 42 grand. So it's like 6 houses in my 401k alone, and so that always seems so big. And then I look at Social Security, and the reason I bring this up is because so often I have families that I'm working with, and they're like so focused on their 401k, which they should be. And I go, hold on, I know that Craig, don't bother me with Social Security. I want to focus on this 300 grand. Don't even talk to me about this because that's $2,000 a month. This is $300,000. So I want to make sure you understand the value of Social Security. Okay, who's this young man on the right? Johnny Carson. Who does he become when he puts that cool hat on? Karnak, the magnificent. So I may not be quite as good as John and Ed McMahon, but I think I know 4 questions on your mind. When should I actually apply? How much will I receive? Of course, why you're here is how do I maximize my Social Security benefits? And the last one is, will it be enough to live on? So let's go through those individually. When should I actually apply? Should I start at 62? In fact, you know what? I'll let you guys be the Social Security experts for a few minutes, okay? My name's Craig. I'm 62 years old. I just got laid off from the typewriter company I've been working for years. We only sold 3 last year, okay? And I've had a couple heart attacks. When should I take my Social Security?
Right now.
ASAP, okay? Let me throw a little wrench in it. My wife Kelly is younger than I am, 7.5 years. When should I take my Social Security?
Later.
Who agrees with Bob? Is it later? Is it now? Maybe not sure. I will probably take my Social Security at 70. Doesn't mean I'm going to work till 70. I'm probably going to take it at 70. It doesn't mean everyone should take it at 70. People go, wait, is your whole presentation just on giving it at 70? No, you should take your Social Security when the best time for you to take your Social Security. There's calculators and things you can figure out. I can help you out if you need it. But essentially, the reason I've decided, at least in my mind at this moment at 70, is because it's over $3,000 a month. So by golly, no matter what, if I die at 71 years old, because I got some cancer at 70 or something and died at 71, then I know for a fact that my wife, who is still only at 62 and a half at that moment, will get $3,000 a month no matter what, just for my Social Security. Would you feel comfortable if your dear wife had at least $3,000 a month coming in no matter what happens with investments or no what happens with anything else that falls over, no matter what, $3,000 a month coming in, especially if I have my house paid off, right? So that's the thinking behind it. Now when I get to 67, maybe I'll but I just wanted to give you an idea of why a later date sometimes is possible. Needed, wanted. So should you take it at 62, 66, 70? We'll figure that out. We'll give you some more ideas today. Okay, how much will I actually receive? If you handle it right more than you expect, most people don't realize what that can equate to and how big that Social Security can be. Okay, what does COLA stand for again?
Cost of living allowance.
Cost of living allowance. I've heard cost of living adjustment. I don't care what you call it. That's, of course, the inflation guard. So that's a huge deal. If we ever have a chance to vote, which I'm not sure we would, but if we ever have a chance to vote to say, okay, if we're going to cut some Social Security out, what would we cut out? My vote would not be to cut COLAs out. Because they go, hey, we're not going to cut your benefit to 80%. We're just going to cut the COLAs off. It probably won't affect a whole lot of you anyway. Wrong. It will affect us because look at how much of a change that makes. Over $4,500 just in your Social Security check alone, and you started at $2,000. So that's a big deal. I've seen people's checks that are, as I've met 90-year-olds, I go, well, how much was your Social Security at the beginning? And I see that happening. So, did you have a question?
Sorry.
That's okay. Okay, remember the rugby players? In fact, this book right here goes with number 2. This is a $1,200 Social Security book. It's actually a couple books inside and a couple CDs. Don't go buy a $1,200. Don't go buy a $1,200 Social Security book. I have 2 of these at my office. You can just come use a conference room, sift through all day long. This has 23 modules just in taking spousal benefits and planning around that if you're married and you're trying to take Social Security. So these are just strategies alone. The rule book is called the PALMS. I don't even remember what that even stands for, but it's the PALMS, and that's all the rules. Go ahead.
That just made me think.
Yeah.
If it went to your office and you just told us the best way to do it, how much does that cost us?
I always do free consultations. I always have, I always will. It makes 0 sense to not. So I meet new families by doing free consultations. If you need me, great. If you don't, no big deal. But yes, that's easy. I love helping families. So, okay, so timing's a big deal. Number 4, if all you had was Social Security, would that be enough to live on?
Maybe.
Yeah, I think maybe is probably the right answer. I put probably not. It might be, but you'd have to really make sure you had your house paid off or something if all you had was Social Security. So probably not the case in this room. All right, let's boost your Social Security. So here are the 5 powerful strategies to boost Social Security. So let's go through the very first one, which is correct records. There was an employer in the valley, and I don't know exactly what happened, but every single person that looked at it showed 2012 as a 0. Isn't that crazy? Every person I've ever met from that employer shows a 0. So I don't know what happened there. But if you worked for 50 grand or 100 grand or whatever you made in 2012, is it important you have it on your Social Security statement? Absolutely. So we have to fix that. So make sure they're all there. If in 1984 yours shows a 0, don't worry about it. Here's the reason why. They take the last 35 years, they drop the worst 5 years off. It doesn't matter high or low, they drop the worst 5. This helps when you're going to get ready to serve a mission, as families ask me all the time, Craig, we're going to go for 2 years. I haven't taken my Social Security. Is this going to totally mess up my payment? Is it going to get cut in half? No, because they take the worst 5 off anyway. So serve where you need to, take a year off, a sabbatical, whatever you want. They take the worst 5. But by golly, if you actually did work in 2012 or any other year close to your retirement age, if you did work, you definitely want credit. You don't want that to be one of the years they take off. You want them to take off in the early 90s or 80s when you didn't make as much money. Was everyone born here in the 80s? Everyone born here by 81? Were you born? You guys look young to me. All right. You're like, hey, I'm old. Hey, I go to Taco Bell and I'm like, when they started letting 12-year-olds work here, I am 16 and a half. Anyone ever do that too? Yeah. You look at people and go, whoa. So double check your statements, make sure it's accurate. If you're missing any years. Okay, there's 2 ways to improve your Social Security. What are those 2 ways? 2 ways. What did you say? Yeah, get paid more. So call your boss and hey, I went to the Social Security workshop and I need to get paid more so I can have bigger Social Security. What's the other one? Delay. Work longer. It's not fancy, but those are the 2 ways. All right, here's a little quiz for you. What does PIA stand for? You like number 3? Doesn't matter where you live, they'll send your Social Security check. We know people that are in Russia and they get their Social Security check. It's a trick question, it's actually this one. Primary insurance amount. Primary insurance amount. So that is the amount that you will get at your full retirement age. My full retirement age is 67. For some of you, it's 66. Some of you, it's 66 and 2 months, 66 and 4 months, 66 and 6 months. That's your PIA. The PIA is the number. So if someone in the hallway goes, hey, Bill, what's your PIA? Then in your mind, you would look at your full retirement age. For me, again, at 67, so I'd go to 67, slide my finger to the right and go, oh, I'm $2,100 a month. That would be your PIA, and I'll show you why that's important in a second, but I wanted you to know that.
Does that ever change?
Does it change? It does. It's not set in stone until you get to be 62. So it ebbs and flows as you make money. I don't know if BYU gives bonuses if you make more. I saw the sign shop over here, right? If you make more signs in a year or something, is there any bonuses if you make more signs or anything? More HVAC systems fixed, there's a bonus.
We don't get that anymore.
Turkeys? Oh. See if you got a bunch of turkeys. So essentially, as your income ebbs and flows, that's where your PIA would ebb and flow. Great question. Okay, optimal time. Strategy number 2, you've got to understand the timing of Social Security to really maximize it. Who in here has been to the Bulletproof Glass place in downtown Provo? Okay, anyone else? What am I talking about? What's the Bulletproof Glass place in Provo?
Social Security office.
Social Security office. So I know I'm supposed to be scared of you guys or what, but it's like bulletproof glass down there. You have to speak to the little thing. Now it's down here lower. But essentially, when you go to the Social Security office, they'll have a
guard that you have to go through to get in.
And there's a guard. Yes. I didn't see a guard when I walked in. But essentially, when you go to the Social Security office, there's a guard. He knows me now. He gives me a little fist bump when I walk in. The Social Security office will probably have a couple things printed for you when you walk in. Let me tell you what they are. This will be the amounts if you start now, if you start in 3 years, if you start at age 70. They'll have that for you. And then they'll have basically a little sheet for break even, but just on your Social Security. So if you're married, it doesn't help you, right? So a lot of times they just simply look at this and kind of focus on this and say, are you here to take your Social Security? And if you're here to take your Social Security, you just say one word, you just say yes, and they will go perfect. And they'll grab their computer, keyboard, and they'll start typing in. They will not ask you about your health, employment, spousal benefits, retirement. They will not ask you any of that stuff. They will just simply look at you kind of funny if you haven't decided, are you taking it today or are you not taking it? What are we doing? Right? When you go in, don't just go in assuming they're going to help you. What's interesting is they're super nice. I know most of them over there. One of them retired not too long ago and became our client, which was kind of fun because we can call her if we really have a tough situation on Social Security stuff. But essentially, they're really nice. It's almost like if an IRS agent is really nice and that they're going to help you figure out your taxes and how to pay less. Just because they're nice doesn't mean that they're there to help you figure it out. A lot of them don't even know. When I saw her in my workshop, I'm like, why are you here? And she goes, Craig, I know this. I stay in my lane, but I don't know how anything else works around this. So she was one of my best students in learning how all this works so that she could take her Social Security at the best time. Who thinks that's interesting? Because it was interesting for me. I couldn't believe that when I saw her in the room.
I know that when I went down there and I started asking them questions, I told them what I wanted to do. She didn't volunteer it, but when I told them, she said, "Oh, that's a good plan."
I almost need a T-shirt that says that. Oh, hey, that's a good plan. After telling them what you want to do on Social Security.
Yeah.
Yep.
Greg, I did online. I didn't have to go down to Bulletproof. There's no disadvantage to doing it online, is there?
Nope. As long as you know what you're doing before you walk in. Yep. I've never met a person that made a bad decision on Social Security. The thing that I ran into is that people make uninformed decisions. When it comes to retirement, the things that you don't know will hurt you. And that's why I wish in my example that you could retire 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 times. And it's not like the Social Security office is getting better at helping you. In my core belief system, you have to understand that I think that the Social Security office should maybe pick, the Provo Library. And every 3rd Wednesday at the Provo Library, someone from the Social Security office goes to the Provo Library and gives a presentation, answers questions about Social Security every single Wednesday or every single 3rd Wednesday of the month. Who thinks that's a good idea? Can you see that? Here's the thing. I think this is Social Security and this is us American people. It should be like this. It's more like this. So if Social Security is not going to go speak to you at the Provo Library every 3rd Wednesday, whose shoulders does it fall on to get the information so that you can have the best retirement possible for you? Whose shoulders does it fall on?
Correct, Judd.
Yeah, everyone points at me sometime. It falls on your shoulders, so you have to learn this stuff. So I'm speaking to the choir. You're here. Good job. here's that PIA I was talking about, okay? This is for age 66. This is for Tom. You see Tom over there. 100%, $2,000. So if someone says, well, Tom, what's your PIA? It's $2,000. That's his PIA. Well, here's the magical 32% that people ask me about all the time. What's the 32%? If you hear a commercial on the radio, 32%, all they're saying, they're trying to get you interested by saying, hey, we're going to get you 32% more. The answer is very short. Take it to 70, 32% more. Done. Right? Now, that actually might be really smart. It may not be, but that definitely don't just assume that that's all you need to know. But essentially, 32% more than the $2,000. So, of course, the $2,640. I'll show you live how this might be beneficial for you. Before I do, let me ask you this. If you start at 75%, maybe you're thinking, oh, the doctor says this isn't going good for me, this cancer is going to take me, I better take my Social Security now. How long am I going to be at 1,500? Forever. Now the COLAs are in there, of course. You get a little COLA on that, but you can't change it except for 1 year. So if all of a sudden the doctor clears you in the 11th month of your 62nd year, you can go ahead and redo it and start over again. But once you pass the year mark, it's over. So be aware of that. All right, one little more quiz. You already know the answer. It's going to be down here, not up here. So where do you see FICA? Have you seen it before? Where have you seen it?
Banking institutions.
Yep, and actually shows them on your check. Yep. So if all of you look at your check, and now more of them are electronic, so you don't see them like we used to when we were younger, but essentially it shows up on your check, FICA, Federal Insurance Contribution Act. It should almost be a T here for tax, because can you opt out of it? Can any of you call HR and say, hey, I don't want to pay my Social Security anymore, I don't want to pay FICA? Can you do that? No. It's forced. Okay, so here's strategy number 3. Here's coordinate spousal benefits. So let's take a few minutes, and I'm going to now pause and go through the Bipartisan Act of 2015. So in 2015, I don't know who it was that started the whole thing back in Washington, D.C., but they decided, hey, let's close what they viewed as some loopholes. Because what they did is they took some laws that were passed in the 70s and some laws that were passed in the 80s, and people in the 90s started figuring out, hey, you can do a spousal benefit and then take your own benefit later. So in 2015, they closed it up. So let me show you what it's like today, and then I'll show you what it's going to be like in 2020. That sound good? So let's just pretend that this is Kelly's benefit, my wife, and let's pretend this is my benefit. So if I'm walking in the Social Security office, open the door, wave to the Social Security guard, and then get back, I'm looking at my benefit, looking at her benefit. When I go in today, up until December 31st of this year, I can look at both of them and go, my benefit's pretty good. Maybe I'll take Kelly's first. So I can take half of her benefit. Now this is assuming I'm age 66, okay, because age makes a difference here too. If you're close to retirement, and this is something, December's coming quick.
Isn't it a birthday thing too? You have to be born before January 1st, 1954.
Yes, which means you're 66 before 2020. Yep. So essentially, I can walk in the door and say, okay, I'm not going to take mine, I want to take half. What's interesting about that is that when you walk in the Social Security office, most of the time they assume that you're there to get the most you can possibly get. They're not always thinking like you're thinking. So they're like, well, yeah, 99.9% of the people, when they walk in the door, they want the most they can possibly get. So they won't even think about this. They'll go, which one's higher? I'm taking this one. But if you're smart about it and you go, hey, maybe there's a strategy, both of us are going to live hopefully a little longer, at least past 83. If only one of you lives past 83, this is awesome. So essentially, you can take the spousal benefit, and then later down the road, doesn't mean you have to wait till 70, just later down the road. Sometime down the road, you can then switch to this one. So you basically drop this one, and then you go on to this one. That's cool. That's what changes. So let's go through now. Walk into my Social Security office again in 2020. Same situation, same family, everything's the same. I've got 2 of these, and I'm looking at how this is going to play out. I'm going to meet with the Social Security office. I can either take this one or I can take this one. There's no more switcheroo down the road. Who's a little sad at this very moment? I am. I've had people almost get mad at me. I'm like, hey, it affected me too. I was like, I made the decision anyway. I'm just the messenger. So when you walk in next year and anytime after that, you just have to pick. How will you know which one to pick? The larger one. So it's very easy. At that point in 2020, you go, no, this one's my higher one, and I take that one. But sometimes the spousal benefit is higher. My wife worked some in college. She doesn't even have hers says, you don't even have a benefit, LOL. I don't even know what LOL stands for, but doesn't have a benefit. So her spousal benefit will always be higher. So it's not a hard decision. She'll just take the spousal benefit. Okay, what questions do you have, thoughts, ideas about the Bipartisan Act of 2015? Coming up here, December 31st. Any questions? Did I do a good job explaining it? Okay, so.
I have a question.
Yes.
So if I'm the only one working and I get to 62 or whatever, so my wife cannot get Social Security? Or?
She will. She'll get a spousal benefit. Yes. Yep.
My wife's 66, and I'm quite a bit younger.
Okay.
Can she take my spousal benefit?
Yes. You just have to know about it. My worst fear is that people are going to call me in January and go, hey, we need to work on this. I'm pretty darn sure the Social Security office will not, there's no way they're going to go, oh, you forgot? No problem. We're going to go ahead and reverse this. They won't. So if that's something we need to tackle, let's tackle in the next 3 months and make sure that you can maximize it. Because what I've had, here's where people are making the mistakes, and I've already seen it happening. Well, I'm not retiring soon, so why in the world would I go figure this out and make sure we can maximize it? It doesn't matter if you're retired or not. Whether you're working or not, you can still take a Social Security. There might be some tax implications. Those are easy workarounds. That's not a big deal. The other thing is they think about themselves. Well, I'm only this age, but if your spouse is older, there's still ways to maximize that Bipartisan Act if your spouse is older. Because so a lot of times we get in tunnel vision, we're only thinking about us and our age, and the other one is, well, we're still working. I'm not going to take my Social Security until I'm done working. Well, if I paid you $50,000 more to take your Social Security while you're working, would you do it? Yeah, I've seen that live, and I've seen that. Go ahead.
I'll tell you in my wife's case, I'll
Okay.
just give you my personal example.
Yeah.
She's 65.
65.
And she should have waited till 66, but the difference between 65 and 66 wasn't much, but as soon
$100.
as she started taking hers, then I could go ahead. I guess I could have taken half of hers even before she took hers.
Are you older than her?
Yes.
Yes. Yep.
She wouldn't have had to take hers.
Have you taken your Social Security?
No, but I'm taking half of hers right now.
You are good.
I got,
Good.
only because you know how it worked for me. I'm talking to the Social Security agent in Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania,
And
yep.
she says, hey, by the way, what's your husband doing? Oh, he's still working. Well, he can get half of yours.
I love it. I don't hear those stories very often,
Very often,
but once in a while I will hear that story, which I love.
yeah.
Yep. Some of the Social Security people, and sometimes it just depends how busy they are. Maybe there's some really talented, forward-looking, knowledgeable Social Security people, but if their crunch time is on and they got 92 more phone calls they have to make that day, they may not have the chance to tell you the stuff. And so you take it as word and go, well, this is how it is, and we're off and running. So I'm glad she had the time to do that. Okay, so let me back up one screen. So Tom and Tara, in this specific case, they're both the same age. They're looking at their Social Securities, and they're looking at them going, all right, Tom, yours is $2,000 a month. Tara's looking at hers. Look, mine's $1,200. She's getting ready to take it. She jumps on and starts taking her benefit. And she gets $1,200 a month going to her credit union, here, the local credit union or bank. And he's looking at his going, man, but if I wait till 70, that's another $640 a month. And my buddy that works at the golf course, what's the Springville golf course again? Hobble Creek, right? He's like, oh, my buddy that's working at Hobble Creek's like, hey, you need to come over, Tom, mow lawns in the morning with me. We get up early, but we're done by 10, and it's free golf. And you get paid a little bit for doing the mowing. And he's like, I don't need as much. Maybe I'll wait until 70. 4 years goes by in a hurry. And so maybe I'll wait until 70. I said, Tom, you can do that. If you do, let me tell you a little bit more. If you do that, you can take a spousal benefit. So he's like, no, I'm not going to do a spousal benefit. I'm like, why not? because I'm not going to hurt my benefit. I want that $26.40 coming in every single month. And I'm like, hold on, it does not hurt yours at all. That's why I call it the free money, because it doesn't hurt it at all. The $600 comes in like clockwork. That goes into his bank account. The $1,200 continues to go into her bank account. And then at age 70, of course, it's $1,800 a month at that point. And then at age 70, he does switch to his. It didn't hurt at all. The $26.40 goes into his bank account now. The $1,200 still goes into her bank account. Yes, the $600 that he was getting off the spousal benefit's gone. That's okay, because we're getting now $2,600. And so from that time forward, almost $4,000 a month just from Social Security coming in like clockwork.
Is that what you're saying changed in 2020 though?
Yep. So January, my slides, they get a change. So I'll just use another, again, there's 23 different modules in this thing, and so I'll just pick a different one of still different ways to maximize Social Security. So they change. That's okay. I have people that say, Craig, I'm going to be close to you for the rest of my life, so as this stuff happens, I know you're doing the research. So, all right, understanding survivor benefits. Some of you have been to my office and you see I have 8-foot whiteboards. Rarely are there whiteboards in places I give speaking stuff bigger than mine. This is one that's actually bigger than mine. Okay? But if this is my whiteboard and I was helping you and your family for a second, or any family for that matter, I would literally draw on this side over here, okay, this is retirement, and then I'm going to draw 30, 40 years of your life. I have people that go, Craig, we don't have to figure that stuff out. I just need to know how to retire and how to maximize my Social Security. And I smile and go, well, if you want to maximize your Social Security, then you need to, what did Stephen Covey's old saying? Start with the end in mind. I want to know what happens when you pass away too. So I don't want to just help you figure out your Social Security now. I want to know what happens when you pass away and what's your wife going to get. Here's my wife's number one concern. How do I make the most interest on my money? Who believes me? Some of you do? I'm totally joking. That's what I care about. But what she cares about is, will I be okay if Craig passes away? That's what she cares about. She doesn't even think about interest rate. Now, part of it's probably because I'm watching over that stuff. But literally, her biggest thing is, will I be okay financially if Craig dies? Who believes me now? That's what my wife worries about. Okay. She doesn't care. She just wants to know that there's a guaranteed check coming in when I die. Because that's what she has now. As I'm working, she gets her kind of portion of the family budget and goes in her bank account. She's had that for 20 some odd years that we've been married. And she doesn't want that to end whether I'm alive or not alive. So even though I talk about money all the time, families are always surprised when I bring in family and missions and goals and values and what you're trying to accomplish, because the whole purpose for the money is to try to make sure you can live the retirement that you want to live. And so I want to know that part first, and then we're trying to figure out, okay, well, let's make sure your wife can still be okay, or your spouse, in case you do die sooner than we want. So that's part of it. Well, this is what happens. If Tom takes his benefit at 66, remember that was his first example, $2,000 a month, he'd get the $2,000, and when he died, she would get the $2,000. Who thinks that's cool? The bigger one sticks around with the spouse. What also happened though? $1,200 is gone. I can guarantee if all of us went on a little field trip and knocked on all the houses of the 80 and 90-year-olds here in Provo and said, hey, what happens when one of you dies of Social Security? They'll have either forgotten, or I dare say they never knew, especially the non-financial spouse. Anyone know any non-financial spouses, right? So essentially, those non-financial people especially will not even know that at 85 years old, when Bill passes away, or whoever, Tom in this case, that a third of the Social Security is gone. It's always a minimum of a third that's coming to the family that disappears on the first day. And if you need that money, that's not a good thing. The last thing you knew, well, let me ask you this. Do you want to plan that now, or do you want to plan that when you're 85 and you're not thinking as good as you think now? Now. So one of the things, whether you have me help you or you do it yourself, make sure that you know how much is going to come in from your retirement in every aspect when you die. Because I've seen people start giving their 401ks away because they go, well, we got plenty of money. We got Tom's Social Security and my Social Security and this pension. We'll never need this money. So they start giving it away to their kids, and all of a sudden they die, and now they're calling their kids, and it's like, I know you gave me $400 last month too. Is there any way you can do another? I mean, that's who wants to be independent and never want to make that phone call ever, right? So that's huge. So this is the thing that I like to make sure you understand is that if you do a later date, that other $640 makes a big difference. If we went on another field trip and knocked on doors of widows and asked them, would another $640 benefit you? How many widows would say absolutely yes? Probably all of them. So let's think about that. So let's make sure we make that decision now as we plan out the rest of your life to make sure that whoever's still left standing on earth when you pass, that other 640 is still coming in of some sorts. Again, doesn't mean everyone should take it 70. It just means let's know before we go how it's going to work. One of the things, this is actually kind of nice. Share this with someone today. Write on your notepad, next 10, best 10. Next 10, just the 10, best 10. And I'll tell you why I say that. I probably go to 5, 6, 8 trainings a year. Half of them require that I'm on an airplane. When I'm on an airplane, how many 90-year-olds do you think ever sit by me or even on the plane? Anyone want to guess? 0. When you're 90, you don't want to go on a trip to Italy and walk around and do 15 miles a day on your legs. That's no fun. When you're 60, are you okay doing that? Who would love to do that? I said we all go tomorrow, right? So when you retire, that's usually your next 10 years are your best 10. You're not going to feel like going a lot of places when you're 80 like you do when you're 65 years old, 70 years old. If there's places you want to be, the Italy Temple, for example, or you haven't been to Nauvoo in a long time or wherever you want to go, do it. Next 10, best 10. So that's a huge, share that with somebody today. See what they say. Okay, managing taxes. So everyone pull out their 1040. If you look at your 1040, there's 2 lines I want you to circle. So first, circle line 10. This is where the rubber hits the road. So if you'll look at your tax form and circle line 10, that's a huge key indicator for your family. What does line 10 say? Someone tell me out loud. That is the taxable amount. I've had people look at line 1 and go, oh no, Craig. I had a guy that was a judge for years. He must have started when he was like 13 because he had one heck of a pension from URS. And he's like, well, I'll never be in a good bracket, Craig, because look how much line 1 is. And I go, hold on, look at line number 10. And he goes, oh, standard deductions or whatever deductions I have and health stuff. So line 10 is your actual tax return, or sorry, your actual tax amount. So then this is the sister form you want to look at next to it. If I make $70,000 on line 10, I mean, maybe I made $100,000 on line 1, but by the time I got my standard deductions and everything, I'm now at 70 grand. I'm married. What tax bracket am I in? Do you see the 12 right in that yellow stripe? Circle the 12. I'm in the 12% bracket. Things are going along great. I have an IRA or a 401k, and when I have a new car I need to get or a new air conditioner, I don't even choose to take out of my 401k because it's taxable. Well, I could take $8,000 out and still be in that nice 12% bracket. Do you see that? Because after the taxes have been paid, I'm only at 70 grand of total earnings, of taxable earnings on line 10, which means I can take $8,000 out and still be in that 12% bracket. Now I'm going a little fast. Let me slow down for a quick second. Where did I get the $8,000? Yeah, I can go clear up to 78 and be in that 12% bracket. Here's the problem that I see a lot. And this is something you want to share with someone today too, because this is how you lock new knowledge in. I meet families all the time. I see people in the grocery store and they're walking around with these buckets, right? Maybe there's some Roth IRA, maybe there's an IRA. Not really, I don't see them with their buckets, but I know most people that at least I meet have some kind of savings somewhere. And often it's in something like this because it's a tax write-off. Their CPAs are like, oh, you want to pay less taxes this year? Yeah, of course I do. Then put the money in a IRA and you can get a write-off. or maximize your 401k and you get a write-off. The problem is you're not paying taxes along the way. What you're doing is you're having a big old bucket that has never been taxed. So take it out while you're married. I'll show you why. If all of a sudden you find yourself single, and sorry if you're single now, I'm just the messenger, but this doesn't look good. 39 to 84,000 as a single person, you're in the 22% bracket. Who thinks that's fair? Right? And guess what? Maybe we think of single people we work with or people around us, but one of us, even if you're married, you might be single one day, and if you're not single one day, I can guarantee your spouse will be single one day. So while you're married, pay your taxes, because it's going to be really hard to live on less than $39,000 as a single person and in that 12% bracket. So when I'm saying go up to that $78,000, I'm not joking around. I have people that are so lazy about that. They're like, yeah, Craig, we made 50 grand and we probably should take more money out because we're married, but hey, she's doing great health-wise, I'm doing great, we'll tackle that later. Well, they'll take it big time later because Uncle Sam doesn't fudge on this stuff. If you're in that 22% bracket, you're in that 22% bracket. And if you take money out of this, there's no way I've never seen a letter that says you don't have to pay taxes on this. I've had people stop me in the middle of a presentation and go, Craig, man, there's maybe just something you need to know. And I go, yeah, what is it? I did a trust, and so because I did a trust, my kids don't have to pay taxes. Is that true? No, if they inherit an IRA, there's no way they're getting out of that. They're still paying the taxes on that IRA, okay? Hopefully they're married when they inherit it. But essentially, that money is at 22% versus a 12. So make sure, even in retirement or even now, that you go up to that bracket for 12%. Taxes are on sale, mark my words. You let me know 10 years from now if you look back and go, Craig was right. Taxes were absolutely on sale in 2019 when he gave us that presentation on taxes and Social Security. One last thing I want to know, and we'll move on off of this sheet. I have people that stop me and go, Craig, at least it's only a 10%. Thank goodness only 12 to 22. That is not accurate. It's 80% more. If you paid $10,000 last year in taxes and you went from the 12 to the 22 because you just lost your spouse, you'll pay nearly $18,000 in taxes because you went from a 12 to a 22. That's an 80% increase as you analyze how much of an increase that was. Who just learned something new? Isn't that crazy? So pay your taxes while you can. I had someone on the phone, actually a BYU employee, he's my age, and he realizes, I told him that over the phone, that he is writing everything off he possibly can. He has a house, he has kids, he's maximizing his 401k because the CPA is trying to help him save taxes, save taxes, save taxes. He realized in that conversation that he was stepping over dollars to pick up dimes. I pay my taxes along the way as much as I possibly can. I don't have time to go through this, but write down DAF. DAF, look up LDS Philanthropies and DAF, Google it in the same sentence. You'll find Donor Advised Fund. And I purposely give to my DAF that I can pay my tithing and fast offerings and any donations. My future senior mission can be paid out of that. My kids and grandkids missions can be paid out of that DAF. But the year that I contribute to it is a deduction on my taxes the year I put the money in. That helps me. If I'm like, hey, I'm at 100 grand or whatever on my taxes on line 10, I can put money into a DAF in the tune of 21,000 and bring it down to did I math right on that? Anyway, bring it down to my $78,000. So LDS Philanthropies, LDSP, LDS Philanthropies. Maybe they're called the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints Philanthropies now. I think it'll still work. Type in LDS Philanthropies and then type in DAF, D-A-F, and you can watch a little 1-minute video and read all about it.
So it's just another place to put your money.
It's another place to put your money that you get a tax write-off in the year that you choose to, rather than Uncle Sam telling you when you're supposed to pay your taxes. It's kind of a play for you, and then you can use it down the road to pay your tithing and other missions and stuff.
It used to be on the old forms that when you were doing your deductions, they had something that if you're over 65, you got to check another box, and if you're blind, you got to check a box. Did those go away?
No, they're still there.
Where are they? This isn't the whole form.
Yeah, actually, I just, once you said blind, I thought maybe I'm wrong. Your standard deduction, yeah, they're not there anymore. The standard deduction is still there, better if you're over 65. That is there still. I don't know about the blind part.
How do they know if you're over 65? I guess.
They all know your birthdays. Yep, they all know your birthday. So watch out, Uncle Sam wants a piece of
They
that.
have a blind
They still have a blind.
on the first,
Oh,
you and your spouse.
you and your spouse. Okay, it's on there.
Where you put your name in.
Where you put your name in if it's blind, if you're blind.
So if our 401ks are set up as fresh, can we change it?
Yes, you can call up HR, probably log in the computer and say, I want it now to be Roth 401k. The match still comes in, doesn't change anything, doesn't change your master retirement. The money still goes in, it's just a Roth now.
And then can't you also take that previously tax deferred money and slowly transfer it?
Yes.
As long as you don't cross that 78.
Yes.
Could, it would be done.
I think that's either the next slide or the slide after. Let's go through it right now. Okay, I've only got a few more minutes, so I'm going to go through the Secure Act after I show you the Roth conversion. So there's the DAF bucket. I have a DAF. Don't forget about the PPA. I have a PPA. You don't have to be a rich person to have a PPA. You need to go back in this slide. A PPA is awesome too because if you ever need care, the money this pays for the care. If I never use my PPA, the money goes onto my family trust. It's spectacular. Think of it as long-term care. Think about this. If you had house insurance, but you moved out of your house into your kid's house at 95, and the insurance guy shows up with a check for $200,000 and said, hey, you paid us $200,000. I'm the farmer's agent or whatever. You paid us $200,000. Your house never burned down. Here's the $200,000 back. Who would be a happy camper? That's what the PPA is with long-term care. You pay into it, and if you need care, it's there. Mine's lifetime. If I need care for 19 years, my PPA pays for it. The good news is, if I never use it, the company pays my family trust $128,000 more than I will ever put in. That's the PPA. I know I have like 6 hours worth of stuff I'm trying to squeeze in an hour, but that's the PPA. If that's something you need to address, let me know, and I can even get you information on the PPA. It's not a big deal. And you don't have to even come in. If you just have a question for me, go, Craig, my wife and I were talking about that PPA thing you mentioned. Can you just take 5 minutes and explain it to us over the phone? That's okay. I'm not in a glass box somewhere. If you just have a question for me, just call me. Call my office. I think the card's in a little folder. I'm easy to look up. Okay, so on the Roth conversions, and then we'll do the Secure Act. Okay, we got just a couple minutes. Here's my Roth IRA. Remember I mentioned if I have $70,000 at my line 10, I want to take $8,000 out to do my air conditioner or something. What if your air conditioner, your roof, and everything's still going good? You still want to take it out, but you don't have to just put it in your checking account or your savings account. You can put it into a Roth IRA, and your Roth IRA has availability to invest in stocks, bonds, mutual funds, whatever your heart desires, an annuity, whatever you want. The money can be in here invested too. So you simply take the money from here, in my example, $8,000, in the Roth, never to pay taxes again. Who likes that sentence? That's how I feel. I want a t-shirt sometime, and never to pay taxes again, right? So essentially the next year maybe I go, hey, I'm retired now, only $60,000 came in, or you have to do this in December. So if you and your spouse or you and your budget meeting go, hey, we're gonna be about $60,000, let's go ahead and convert $18,000 from my 401k to my Roth, never to pay taxes again. The cool thing is, as of this moment, if your children inherit the Roth IRA, they will also never pay taxes again. And if they don't use it because they put it on their show for their retirement, they never get to it because they end up using their own 401k money first or something because of taxes, guess what? It can even go to your grandchildren 100% tax-free. So if you leave $100,000 per kid in the Roth just by accident because you never got around to spending it, and it grows to $400,000 by the time they die, the grandkids can inherit it, and they've now got that big chunk that they can split up amongst themselves. Okay, so that's the Roth conversion. The last thing is Secure Act. Go ahead with a quick question.
So when you're talking about taking money out of the IRA without going over your tax bracket,
yes.
Are you talking about once you retire, start doing that, or are you saying just right now?
as soon as it's available. I have people who go, Craig, I'm making 200 grand a year running this business over here in Saratoga Springs or whatever. And I go, you probably don't want to do Roth conversions yet. You're making too much money just simply saving the 401ks. Then once you retire, then let's do it. But that is definitely not the case for everyone. Like I say, if I'm looking at my taxes going, cool, I'm at 70 grand this year. I mean, you know, who doesn't, you'd rather make 80 than 70. But if you're making 70, you're thinking, cool, I am now going to be able to convert 8 grand, basically 8 grand, over and not have to pay taxes on it again. Okay, the last thing is Secure Act. I do realize I have this in front of me. This is 11 pages of just a Social Security analysis. I can run these easy. I can run these in about 6 minutes. So if you're like, yeah, we're getting close, Craig, or not close, and you want me to run one of these, it's easy to do. We have a big fat printer like the one you guys have upstairs right in our office. It's easy to print one of those. So if you need Social Security, just write down, I might need a little Social Security statement from Craig. Okay, Secure Act. It's actually pretty long, but here are the 8 areas that I wanted to highlight for you. Here's potentially what's coming. Don't let it scare you yet, because it did finally slow down a little bit. It passed, I think it was the House, very quickly. So we're thinking, holy moly, the Secure Act is coming. Well, what in the world is the Secure Act? It stands for the Setting Every Community Up for Retirement Enhancements Act. Holy moly, the Secure Act. It's quite the mouthful. So here are the 8 areas. 1, increases to small employee access plans. So if you actually have retirement plans. So it doesn't affect you guys as much on number 1, but it's good news if you have some children that work for a small business that don't have a 401k because they're pretty darn expensive to have around. Then hopefully your kids go, cool, Dad, Mom, we just got a 401k started. The next one is increase annuity options inside retirement. Annuities aren't for everybody, but for the right people, annuities are amazing, and which is always funny to hear people have their own opinions on that. And I'm unbiased. If an annuity's needed, great. If it's not, great. But what's interesting is that there's no annuities inside 401ks. I've never seen someone go, oh yeah, half it's an annuity and half of it is in stocks, bonds, mutual funds. That's why as I meet school teachers and conservative people, when I meet them, I actually met a guy yesterday for the first time, and he literally had half of it in mutual funds and stocks, and the other half in a money market making 0.001%, because that's all the 401k offered. So if there was an annuity inside that plan, he maybe have gotten an annuity that paid 3% guaranteed, kind of like a CD. And so that'll be really good. Number 3, this one's the most interesting one, I think. Increase the RMD age. What's the RMD age now?
70 to 100.
And what in the world does RMD stand for? Required minimum distributions. So they want to increase it to 70 and 6 months, or 70 and 7 months rather than 70 and 6 months. Isn't that crazy? I'm just kidding. But it feels like that because they only want to increase it to 72, right? Do you know how many calculators I have alone in my office that figure out RMDs at 70 and a half? It will be billions of dollars for people just to upgrade their computer systems, and every annuity company, every 401k company, every BYU out there in the world will have to do billions of dollars of upgrades just to have the RMD be 72 versus 70 and a half. Isn't that crazy? So it's nuts. If they're going to increase it to 80, make it worthwhile, not, hey, we'll give you an extra year and a half to avoid your RMD. Just leave it alone if they anyway. Okay, number 4, go through these really fast. Got 2 more minutes. Removal of age limitation on IRA contributions. We had a lady come in the office last year. She goes, oh, Craig, I want my deduction. She's 71. She cannot put money in an IRA to get a tax deduction. She's still working, enjoying it. She actually taught here part at BYU for a number of years, and she can't put money in after. So they would get rid of that. So if you need a tax deduction at 71, you can still get it. Take tax credit for open enrollment. This one's interesting. $500 to help small employers to encourage automatic enrollment. Interesting. Hey, if you start, we'll give you $500. Probably a lot of people will start. Okay, just 3 more. Penalty-free distributions for birth of a child or adoption. So if you have a kid, you can take money out of your 401k, no 10% penalty. 2 more here. Lifetime income disclosed for defined contribution plans. So if you have a defined contribution plan, lifetime income has to be disclosed on that. And here's the last one, removal of the stretch inherited IRA provisions. Remember how I told you guys a few minutes ago, at this very moment, if your kids inherit a Roth IRA, they can take that for their lifetime and your grandchildren can take it for their lifetime. So this part's not good for us, for sure, and that is they want that to only be a 10-year period. So it's not going to go on to grandkids unless you pass away 10 years after your mom or dad. So that might be something that changed. But I want to kind of give an idea of what's happening, what Congress is thinking about with our retirement and how this is going down. So thanks for your time. Give me a call if you need some help. Thanks for your time today. I know it's already 1 o'clock. You guys got to get back to work. So thanks again. I appreciate your time today.